Ryan Lavoie here at the Panini Senior Bowl. Pleased to be joined by Baylor quarterback Sawyer Robertson. Sawyer, the time's greatly appreciated. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to kind of experience what this week's all about. So I'm excited.
I'm very interested to hear your perspective about what it's going to be like being a quarterback going through this process. But first, I do want to go back to your time at Baylor. What stood out to you? What will you remember from your time with the Bears?
Man, I had a blast playing for Baylor, playing for Coach Jake Spavital in that offense, spread offense. We threw the ball around a lot. We were explosive, just kind of attacking defenses. It was a lot of fun. I'm thankful to be one of the quarterbacks developed by him, and just for everything that Baylor was about. I grew as a person there and grew as a football player.
Of course, got to mention the very first game of the year, as we are located in Auburn, Alabama. What was that like going into? Because, I mean, there's a lot of talk about you're playing a good non-conference opponent, you're playing out of league, everyone looks forward to these games, and you're preparing in a way for a lot of the summer and fall for it. Just what was the atmosphere like? Just take me back to your feelings going into the first game of the season.
Yeah, the atmosphere was great. It was an exciting game just because, you're bringing in an SEC opponent to Waco. Obviously very respectable. Auburn's a very historic program, and so we knew we were going to have our hands full. Some really, obviously playing quarterback, knew they had some really, really good athletes on the defensive side. And so it was fun just to be able to compete against them, and it kind of, like you said, it prepared us for the rest of the season too. The next week we went to SMU, played them, and beat them in double overtime, and I was like, I don't know if we would have gotten that done if we didn't start with Auburn to this season. And so it was an awesome game, one that I'll remember forever.
And, of course, you were very prolific in that game, and you were prolific throughout your time in Baylor. What about that offense? I know you mentioned Jake Spavital a little bit, but what about that offense made you kind of get the best out of yourself? Or do you feel like there was even more to get out of yourself?
I mean, you always, as an athlete, you always feel like you could have done better. But, no, I think my teammates, I was throwing to some really, really good receivers, tight ends, running backs, and then the O-line protected me all year. I got out of the season healthy, and so my teammates really made me look better than what I am, and so I'm thankful for them. Obviously, Coach Spav for taking the time to develop me and coach me.
So I'm curious from a quarterback's perspective, because when we see the draft process and you get guys that you might work with and throw to one week, or guys you've been throwing to for years, just take me through what is the chemistry like of guys that you've worked with for multiple years, you've been throwing to, the ins and outs of how they round off their routes, versus guys that you're throwing to for the very first time.
It's different for sure. Yeah, it's different. Even as far as like if they're running a route and it's supposed to be a three-step route, well, if you have a fast guy who might be 5'10", he's going to be at a different spot than a tall 6'3" receiver with longer strides. And so just all of that goes into it. And so you want to build that chemistry early on, which, being here this week, this will be the first time I'm throwing to a lot of these guys. It's the same thing at the combine. And so there's going to be some growing pains for sure, and I think that's expected, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, at the end of the day, we're playing football. I have fun playing football, and so I'm just looking forward to that.
What have you heard about this week and this part of the draft process from others?
It's a grind, yeah. So this calendar year, from the end of our football season all the way up until really the end of your rookie season, that's one of the longest calendar years you're going to have, just because you got Senior Bowl, Combine, Pro Day, and then right after that you're going into the draft, rookie minicamp, OTAs, all that stuff. And so I've heard it's a long year, but I'm excited for it. I'll welcome any challenge.
What part of your game do you feel, and I know as a competitor you're always wanting to prove everything,
right,
but
yeah.
What would you say is the strength of your game, and what is something that you are looking forward to working on throughout this process?
I think a strength of my game is I think I'm accurate, and I think that I can pick up. I played for the 3 different coordinators in my college career, and so I think I can pick up on playbooks pretty fast. And it's something I'm looking to improve. I think you can get as technical with mechanics as you want. So just being consistent with everything, as far as how my feet strike the ground, all the way up until the release point. Just getting super consistent with that to a point where you don't really miss.
Talking to Baylor quarterback Sawyer Robertson here today at the Panini Senior Bowl. Sawyer, we'll kind of wrap up with this. With this week and throughout this process, and mentioned the strengths and what you're looking forward to working on, what does a successful week look like for you at the Senior Bowl?
I think growth. I want to leave here a better quarterback than when I got here. And then I think the interview part is huge. It'll be kind of the first time you're talking to some teams. And so I think just kind of showing them who you are, not necessarily trying to go above and beyond, but just being yourself, and hopefully there's a team that'll fall in love with you and believe in you.
Baylor quarterback Sawyer Robertson with us here today on SportsCall. Sawyer, greatly appreciate the time. Best of luck here throughout the draft process.
Thank you for having me.